Watch right now on the Front News project. Powerful explosions in Sochi and Adler, military facilities are on fire. The south of Russia now also knows what war is. The Russian army is about to storm Pokrovsk, and the Ukrainian Armed Forces are ready to meet the uninvited guests. Putin will keep fighting until 2034. War in the Baltic Sea is also just around the corner. Fiery, intense and blazing footage from the front lines. Watch it right now. It's the fourth year of the full-scale war that Putin's Russia started on Ukrainian soil. The Ukrainian Armed Forces continue to heroically defend not only their homeland, but the entire civilized world from the aggression of Kremlin war criminals. Greetings! This is Front News. I'm Vladimir Timoshenko. In the next 30 minutes, you'll get the truth about the war, uncovered by a journalist from the hottest combat zones. So, are you ready? Then let's begin. And we'll start right away with the most important thing: the war of the Russian Federation against Ukraine could actually continue for another 10 years, until 2034 and beyond. This was stated by Valery Zaluzhny. Whatever the case may be, things are heating up in southern Russia. And it's not about the weather, as you can imagine, but about powerful explosions. A massive drone attack was recorded in Russia's Krasnodar region. Powerful explosions were heard in Sochi and Adler, where a strike ignited an oil depot. At the same time, Russia continues to escalate the situation in the Baltic Sea. Large-scale naval exercises have begun, involving more than 150 ships and 15,000 military personnel. All the details are coming up in our report. It was a hot night in Rushate. Krasnodar region was visited by drones.
Oh, mama, that's it. Oh, that's it. Oh, what on earth is going on?
Sochi has suffered the largest attack since the start of the full-scale war. Local residents counted at least 7 explosions in the sky over Adler. Around 800 passengers were stranded in airports across Siberia. The UAVs may have hit one of the railway bridges. Russian authorities also reported a strike on an oil depot on Tavercheskaya Street.
Are those cars coming up the road? Oh, shoot. It looks like it's the oil depot, a very important and strategic location, and it appears to be under attack.
While in Russia, UAVs are attacking strategic targets, in Ukraine, the occupiers continue to terrorize the civilian population. At night, Putin's troops launched a massive strike on Odessa. As a result of the attack, civilian infrastructure, residential buildings, and sites within the UNESCO zone were damaged. One of the enemy strike locations was the famous Privoz market in the historic city center. But this war is not enough for Putin, and apparently the dictator is preparing for another one. Russia has launched large-scale naval exercises involving more than 150 ships and 15,000 military personnel in the Pacific and Arctic Oceans, as well as in the Baltic and Caspian Seas.
The exercise scenario involves the defense of base areas and, most importantly, economic activity zones. In other words, the Russian Federation is making it clear that the Arctic is an area of exclusively Russian economic interest. The same situation applies to the Baltic Sea. The Russian Federation is making it clear that it will prevent attempts by NATO countries' fleets to block the activities of illegal tanker ships of the so-called Shadow Fleet.
Meanwhile, Turkey is strengthening its military capabilities. The defense company Roketsan has, for the first time, demonstrated its newest hypersonic ballistic missile, the Tayfun Block 4. It is claimed that it can hit targets at a range of several hundred kilometers at speeds exceeding Mach 5.
Erdogan is therefore considering concrete steps toward an independent defense industry at this moment. This comes against the backdrop of the United States decision to potentially block the supply of both air and missile defense systems, as well as, accordingly, the F-16 and F-35.
Ukraine will also soon receive new weapons. The US has approved the sale of 2 military aid packages to Kyiv totaling $322 million. It is known that the package will include the latest air defense systems and their maintenance, as well as Bradley infantry fighting vehicles, their repair and technical support. And while America is publicly helping Ukraine fight the occupiers, Putin continues to secretly cooperate with Xi Jinping. China is supplying Russia with drone engines through front companies, disguising them as industrial refrigeration units, Reuters reports.
After statements from the Chinese political leadership that the PRC will not allow the Russian Federation to be defeated in the war, it suggests, or rather it may suggest, an expanded nature of cooperation, including military technical collaboration between the Russian Federation's military-industrial complex and, accordingly, the PRC's military-industrial complex.
Meanwhile, fierce fighting continues on the front lines. Russian forces have amassed reserves and are trying to break through to Pokrovsk. At present, combat operations are taking place in the vicinity of the city. And now, an analysis of the operational situation on the much-suffering Pokrovsk direction of the front. The bloody rampage of the enemy army continues here as well. Since the beginning of the day on the Pokrovsk direction, the occupiers have made 25 attempts to push our defenders from their positions in the areas of the settlements of Rusenyar, Mirne, Mirnograd, Novoekonomikeskaya, Lisovka, Zverevo, Kotlino, Udachnoe, Dachnoe, and towards the settlements of Vladimirovka and Pokrovsk. The defense forces are holding back the enemy's onslaught and have already repelled 20 attacks. 5 combat engagements are still ongoing. Enemy losses are being clarified. Yes, the situation at the front is indeed difficult. For example, in the Sumy region, the Russians have come right up to the strategic highway that leads from Sumy to the north. The key problem here is Ukraine's shortage of manpower. But TSN Nedely's war correspondent Andriy Tsaplienko found out that recruiting foreigners from Latin America has yielded successful results for the 47th Brigade, which is fighting precisely in the Sumy region. Watch our next report about the Colombian unit within this brigade.
The RAC unit in the 47th Brigade is called the Colombian unit. The overwhelming majority of its soldiers hold Colombian passports. While the new recruits from South America are training at the range, their more experienced compatriots are driving the occupiers out of Ukrainian land in the Sumy region.
Now the guys from the Colombian.
Right now, the guys from the Colombian unit are practicing what they usually do on the front line, storming Russian positions. The positions are imaginary, but the bullets and grenades are real.
Grenades out now?
On the real front line in the Sumy region, the Latin Americans in Ukrainian uniforms cleared out several enemy positions and captured quite a few trophies.
Russian. No, I can't always expect that everything will go well, but I always put my hope in God so that he can get me out of every mission alive.
Formally, the movement is considered a company. In reality, there are already enough assault troops in it to allow for internal rotation if necessary. Some are fighting, some are resting, some are training. Can we talk about numbers? Show many have you brought to Ukraine?
Look, we've already brought in more than 1,000, actually closer to 2,000, something like that.
Hamlet, an ethnic Armenian, the commander and organizer of the unit, never questioned whether there should be a foreign company in the 47th Brigade. He just went ahead and did it. The commander doesn't trouble himself with other Hamlet-like questions either.
Each of us has our own motivation and personal interest. I didn't ask, I'm not interested. They fight, they do everything as they should. The rest doesn't interest me what their motivation is and so on.
But that's what interests us. What made you travel thousands of kilometers to come and defend Ukraine? Among the many reasons is the financial one.
I'm Colombian, I'm 27 years old. My military career as a professional soldier began in Colombia. I do this work to help the Ukrainian people as well as to help my family and provide myself with financial income. Money is a very important factor because we need money to meet our needs. On the other hand, this kind of work is also a calling. I enjoy doing this.
But the reason for choosing this is not just about money. For us, the enemy is Russia. Is Russia an enemy for you personally, or is it just a situational enemy?
I consider them enemies. I don't understand the reason for this aggression when civilians are dying. I grew up surrounded by violence, and I've also experienced bad things in my country, things that we Colombians are not proud of. We have already lived through war, and for us it's quite normal to take up arms. This is very common in Colombia.
La violencia violenza, that's what this guy calls their civil war, in which the government fought against communist groups. Most Colombian soldiers who joined the 47th Brigade believe that the partisans were supported by Russia.
This has always been known. Always, it supported illegal left-wing armed groups. That's how it's always been.
This guy from Peru has the call sign Stubborn. 15 years of service in a Peruvian special unit can't even be compared to what he saw in 8 months in Ukraine.
Since this is a battlefield, you can't expect everything to always go according to plan. I always tell the truth. We know this is war, and that things don't always look rosy. That's why we have to be honest both about the benefits for the servicemen and the task we're carrying out here.
The truth is, here in Ukraine, there is no safe place anywhere. A Shahed is flying over us.
Everyone, get down.
An explosion goes off somewhere nearby.
There it is. There.
Colombians have never seen a war like this at home. The Colombian unit, well, let's call it Colombian for convenience, because there are guys from other countries serving here too. This isn't just assault infantry, it's mechanized infantry. The fire support units have these formidable Bradley infantry fighting vehicles as well as M113 armored personnel carriers. And there are already trained crews for this complex equipment. This driver mechanic is originally from Zimbabwe, a country whose politicians openly declare their support for Russia in the war against Ukraine. Perhaps that's why at first the guy had to break through a wall of distrust in Ukraine.
People didn't really share their experience with me or explain how to do things the right way. So at first it was hard to learn. But in this unit the attitude is impartial, and the commander here is a great man. He doesn't look down on people and gives them a chance to prove themselves.
Thank you, Commander, with a capital C. You have no idea how much it means to me to know that you respect me. May my God always bless you. Have a great night. Get some rest until tomorrow, Commander. Well, that's just poetry.
And my whole phone is like that.
The Commander is confident that foreigners, especially Colombians, can become a significant resource for our armed forces.
So we have...
Look, based on the applications we've received in a month, we could easily recruit at least 1,000 volunteers who want to commie at least. Just buy them tickets and they'll all come. Attitudes toward volunteers in Colombia are mixed. There is no specific law in the country that prohibits Colombians from serving in the military in Ukraine. However, left-wing politicians are slowing down this kind of recruitment, citing an international convention. At the same time, Colombian military leaders acknowledge the direct benefit for Colombia because it's new recruits who go to Ukraine, but a modern, well-trained army that returns home.
Colombia receives a fully trained army and soldiers who understand what war is and are familiar with all the modern aspects of warfare. He has seen everything, he understands everything, he knows it all. The army itself becomes stronger as a result.
Serving in the Ukrainian Armed Forces gives Colombians the opportunity to rapidly climb the ranks of their military careers back home. But first, they need to win the war in Ukraine, or at least drive the Russians out of the Sumy region.
Glory to Ukraine! Glory to the heroes! Viva Colombia! Viva, viva Colombia! Another brutal attack by the Russians on Ukraine's Pearl by the Sea Odessa. They hit a high-rise building, destroyed the Privolzh market and struck the Primorsky Boulevard. 4 people were injured. 1 person was killed. Once again, Russia attacked the city with strike drones. The massive attack came in several waves. The drones first gathered over the sea and then struck the city simultaneously. In total, the enemy sent 30 strike drones to Odessa. All the details are in the report from our colleagues at the television news service.
About last night, Odessa residents are once again saying it was the worst night since the start of the full-scale war. The enemy attacked the historic city center and once again deliberately struck a residential high-rise. In the 9-story building in Moldavanka, there is a huge hole spanning 3 floors. The seismograph which rescuers rely on shows that the panel could collapse at any moment. At the same time, the rescue team is searching for a person under the rubble in one of the destroyed apartments. Neighbors reportedly saw a person. A moment of silence and then a dog handler with a dog steps onto the debris.
At the present moment,
the search has yielded nothing. A silence protocol is being implemented, in hopes of possibly hearing a person making sounds. At the same time, we are combining this with a search using the dog. It is also preferable that there are no unauthorized people in the search area itself.
A Shaya drone flew straight into the building and destroyed apartments from the 5th to the 8th floor. What wasn't destroyed by the blast wave, the fire began to consume. 5 people ended up trapped in their apartments. Rescuers helped them get out in time. Some residents managed to grab their emergency backpacks, while others don't even remember how they got out of their apartments.
How did we get out? I don't remember any of it at all. Turns out I even locked the doors. I jolted, grabbed onto something. The doors wouldn't open. And the ones in the hallway, they fell onto mine and got jammed. My neighbor was shouting, "Run!" My balcony was on fire. We were all covered in glass and went down the stairs from the 7th floor. Well, it's nothing, that's just how it was. I got everything ready. It's all just talk. When the strike happened, we were trying to save ourselves at 2 in the morning. My neighbor quickly went to the shelter. And it's a good thing, because her apartment burned out.
We were prepared. We understood that if not today, then tomorrow there could be a strike.
The damaged entrance has 0 chance of holding up. The destruction is critical, according to the experts. Residents are hoping at least to get into the surviving apartments and retrieve their essential belongings.
Firefighters rescued 5 people and another 33 residents were evacuated. Clearing the debris is made more difficult by the fact that the building is severely damaged and there are occasional small collapses while rescuers are working on the floors.
Another massive fire broke out at the Privoz market after the strike. The fire spread very quickly. Despite all the rescuers' efforts, 2 pavilions were completely destroyed and many other shops and stores were damaged.
Everything was burning, and we weren't allowed anywhere near. Basically, we've been left with no trace of our existence at all. I've been working at this market since 1994. Honestly, I just don't know how to go on living or what to do next.
On Primorsky Boulevard, there's a crater. Windows have been blown out in an architectural monumental. Local hotel trees have been damaged and streetlights shattered. At the moment, specialists are assessing the damage in the historic city center.
And now let's move to the Huliaipol and Orikhiv directions on the front line. The Russian world continues to destroy, kill and maim here as well. In the Huliaipol direction, the area around the settlement of Zaliznykhne was attacked with unguided rockets. The enemy did not conduct any active offensive operations. In the Orikhiv direction, the occupiers launched an assault near Stepnohirsk. In total, there was only 1 combat engagement in this area. And here is another very interesting point that clearly illustrates the situation in the aggressor's army. So in the so-called Second Army of the World, there is a catastrophic shortage of soldiers. Russian prisoners are being forced through intimidation and violence to sign contracts and are then sent to the front. We will share the details of these, let's say, schemes in the next report from our colleagues.
Russian convicts are being recruited for the war in Ukraine through brutal beatings and torture. Relatives of the prisoners themselves reported this to the publication Sibir, rarely on condition of anonymity. It's no secret to anyone that penal colonies have become a lifeline for the Russian Ministry of Defense. The practice of recruiting for private military companies was started by the now deceased Yevgeny Prigozhin.
No one ever retreats, and no one ever surrenders.
Journalists have calculated that he managed to recruit about 50,000 prisoners. Out of the 20,000 mercenaries who died near Bakhmut, 17,000 were former convicts. In 2023, the Federal Penitentiary Service reported that the number of prisoners that year decreased by a record 58,000 people. To ensure the flow of those willing to trade their bunks for the trenches didn't dry up, the Russian government acted quickly and adjusted the laws to fit the needs of the Ministry of Defense. Since October 2024, it has become possible to sign a contract even at the stage of court proceedings, that is, before a verdict is delivered. This way, investigators managed not to overload the penal colonies and ensured a steady flow of participants for the meat-grinder assaults.
A contract soldier from the...
What did you choose? To serve your sentence or go to war?
To serve my sentence.
The commander said you'd be going on a motorcycle. I said, how am I supposed to ride a motorcycle? The last time I rode a motorcycle was 2 or 3 years ago. He was already contacting the commander on WhatsApp.
He'll learn by the time he gets there. He got locked up for fighting with the police. He signed the contract on the 18th of December 2024. They didn't really ask me. I signed. Well, they said they'd clear my record. And in a year, I'd be completely free. Life will start with a clean slate. The scariest thing in war is when your own guys shoot themselves for reasons no one knows. And the headless ones lying there without a head, idiots. It's better to just serve out your sentence and not rush anywhere. There's nothing good here, and it's not like it's covered in honey.
There's no more honey in the war in Ukraine, but there are fewer convicts now. The system keeps churning out political prisoners, but you can't recruit them. For a year now, the media has been reporting that it's simply impossible for inmates to get out on parole. There's only one option, a contract. And now his relatives say they're forcing him to sign it.
They opened the gates and hundreds of riot police stormed into the colony, beating everyone indiscriminately. If you so much as raised your hand, they'd accuse you of resisting. They just beat the whole colony with batons along their spines, and nearly half were taken straight to the front with broken bones. Some people signed contracts right there, while others were taken to Moscow. And on the way, they'd say, well, when we get to Lefortovo, we'll cut your ears off. He signs the contract right away. They communicate this all across the region. Of course, this kind of thing is happening in every colony in the region. Well, if even in such a light colony, where every act of violence used to happen for some actual reason, you can imagine what's going on in the high security or special regime colonies.
Journalists report that the situation in the colonies of the Volga region is not much different from that in the Tula region.
On Friday, the FSI in Omon, FSB, and even the regional FSI from a neighboring region arrived. About 100 people. They beat everyone indiscriminately. They immediately took 15 non-Russians for the contract. Half of them were taken to Lefortovo. On the way, they threatened to charge them with extremism if they didn't sign the contract. All week, Russians have been beaten one by one. They are summoned to the authorities and their phones are taken away. If you refuse the contract, they beat you. After that, squad after squad is closed because of the prisoners who have left. There are about 10 left now.
The Russian prison has become dictator Putin's magic wand. Thousands of convicts who don't need to be paid enlistment bonuses. They can be easily disposed of without worrying about funeral payments. Russian military aggression has allowed Russians not only to satisfy their imperial ambitions, but also to get rid of a significant social burden.
Now let's analyze the current situation on the Lyman front. The enemy is becoming more ferocious here as well. On the Lyman front, the invading army attacked 16 times near the settlements of Rekivka, Novyimir, Yampolivka, Toske, and towards the settlements of Dronivka, Shandriholov, Cherneshkaina, and Seredny. 4 clashes are still ongoing. This week, the Ukrainian city of Sumy was once again heavily attacked by Shahed drones. A woman was killed, and 9 more people were injured. As a result of drones hitting critical infrastructure, part of the city was left without electricity. Public institutions were connected to generators and water was supplied according to a schedule. TSN correspondent Oksana Solodovnik will tell and show us what the situation in Sumy is like right now.
It was a difficult night and a difficult evening, especially for rescuers and power workers. Right now, the enemy is focusing its strikes on critical infrastructure. Energy facilities in particular are under fire. The city barely had time to recover after the strikes with glide bombs on Monday, let me remind you. 13 people were injured then when the Russians sent drones towards Sumy. Starting at noon, attack drones continuously targeted the city. Explosions were heard every hour. It is known that at least 5 hits were recorded on civilian infrastructure sites. A hospital, a school, several apartment buildings, private houses, and about 15 cars were damaged. It is known that one drone was packed with shrapnel and struck a children's playground. 9 city residents were injured. Around 3 o'clock in the afternoon, a drone attack on a social facility claimed the life of a 72-year-old woman. The drone hit a tree. At the time of the attack, the woman was outside and sustained multiple shrapnel wounds. Doctors fought for her life for half an hour. However, the injuries proved fatal.
This is the main cylinder component from it.
From the drone?
Yes, a lancet. The birch tree was scorched. See, a woman was walking there and it killed her.
Around 5 in the evening, after another attack, power went out in parts of Sumy as well as in settlements of the Romny district. There were also disruptions in water supply and the operation of electric transport. A number of institutions switched to backup power. Late in the evening, energy workers managed to restore electricity for just a few hours. However, by midnight, another attack by several enemy drones once again cut off power to Sumy. There are also power issues in the Shoska district.
Once again, the enemy attacked the civilian infrastructure of our city. Part of the city was left without electricity and some hospitals are operating on generators. All relevant services are working to eliminate the consequences of the emergency situation. I hope that the restoration work will be completed in the near future.
Despite constant enemy attacks both day and night, the power workers are doing what seems impossible and still manage to bring electricity back to people's homes. By morning, electricity had already started to return in several districts of the city. Starting from 10 o'clock, all water intakes are operating as usual and trolley buses are currently running on modified routes. Restoration work is ongoing.
And now about the most massive attack on Ivano-Frankivsk since the beginning of the full-scale invasion. The enemy launched a combined strike on the city and its surroundings using Shaheds and missiles. It is known that 4 people were injured, including an 11-year-old boy. TSN correspondent Alapas will now report on the condition of the injured and the destruction caused by the Russians.
The 4 injured residents of this house in one of the suburban villages of Ivano-Frankivsk are a married couple and their 2 sons aged 11 and 25. Their injuries are not serious. The doctors provided them with the necessary assistance and they are all at home now.
We started to move away. My leg was injured, and underneath, I'm not sure, there might be shrapnel and glass fragments. We were very frightened.
It was a shahed, says the homeowner. Usually they would hide in the basement, but this time they stayed in their rooms. They believe that's why they're still alive, since the enemy UAV crashed right under the house. The explosion blew out a wall in the basement. The whole house is destroyed. Only 1 bathroom survived. It's impossible to live here now.
There's a crater from the drone here has been filled in with styrofoam. Well, you can see here, there's a hole, there was a root here, a plum tree grew here, the plum was uprooted along with its roots.
Could you please tell us why you decided not to go down to the basement this time?
I don't know, but I guess God guided us.
The enemy struck civilian infrastructure. Several suburban villages as well as areas within the region were affected. Windows were shattered in residential houses, roofs were broken and outbuildings were damaged. In Ivano-Frankivsk, as a result of falling debris, industrial warehouses caught fire over an area of more than 300 square meters, as well as garages with cars in a private cooperative.
It was burning badly here. There was a bang, we were hiding, so I don't know.
Were you here seen?
No, not here, I was at home. I live nearby, so I could hear everything, but I didn't look.
Commissions are already going through the damaged houses and apartments, assessing the losses. Material assistance has been promised to those affected. By the way, debris from the downed shaheds also fell in the fields. The regional administration reports that the relevant services are now collecting them. People are being urged, if they find them, not to touch them under any circumstances, as it is dangerous.
And now, an analysis of the operational situation on the Dnipro front. The situation here is, as usual, extremely tense. On the Dnipro front, the aggressors attacked the defense forces' positions 5 times towards Dniprovsk, Sadove, and Pridniprovsk. In addition, the enemy carried out an airstrike on the settlements of Kherson and Mykolaiivka. She's only 21, and for the past 6 months, she has been dreaming of a tank. A servicewoman of the 130th Separate Territorial Defense Battalion with the call sign Barney commanded an anti-tank grenade launcher crew. And now, at last, she has been transferred to the Tank Corps. She will be a gunner. She is now getting used to her new role, so she can cause as much trouble for the enemy as possible. Details in the report by TSN correspondent Kyra Oves.
Just 3 weeks ago, 21-year-old Barney was destroying Russians with an anti-tank grenade launcher in the area of responsibility of the 65th Brigade Bolshoi Lug. Now she's the main gunner of the tank.
50 ahead. Loaded. 300 to the left. Fire. Done.
I've wanted this for a long time. Yes, I've wanted this for a long time. I've been asking for 6 months. Finally! I still can't believe I'm already in a tank.
Barney's commander Andriy Karchenko was reluctant to approve the transfer for a long time. He says that as an anti-tank grenade launcher commander, no one could match her.
She is an excellent SPG operator. She is a very successful SPG commander. Women are simply incredible in war.
But the soldiers' persistence paid off. For now, she's learning to be a gunner in the tank. This T-80, which Barney has been training on since 2022, is fighting on the side of good. Back then, the fighters of the 130th Battalion captured it as a trophy during extremely difficult battles in the Kharkiv region.
In the settlement of Dementievka, this is one of the tanks that tried to destroy us and drive us out of this settlement. But it was the only tank that was damaged, all the others were destroyed. It's a tank, but for the most part it's not just a means of firepower. It's a memory, it's a weapon of vengeance that fulfills its purpose.
It's interesting, when you take their equipment and then their own equipment is used against them. That's something else.
The tank was upgraded, equipped with anti-drone protection and fitted with reliable electronic warfare systems. Barney is being trained by combat instructors who have destroyed the enemy on the Kharkiv, Donetsk and now Zaporizhia fronts.
We engaged the assault columns, but it wasn't just the tank in action, you could say the entire artillery was involved. Dugouts were easily destroyed by the 125mm caliber.
The instructor with the call sign Kama says that Barney learns quickly. But most importantly, she already has combat experience and she isn't afraid to go out on a mission.
When she puts on the uniform, she stops being a girl and becomes a service member. There are no concessions for her, no allowances, none of that I have a manicure after lunch stuff. She does everything very well. I would even say she understands and picks things up much better than most of the guys.
The young service member of the 130th Battalion has more training exercises ahead. After that, she'll have real combat practice on the Zaporizhia front.
That's all for today. But very soon on Front News, there will be new, truly unique and exclusive reports from our dedicated journalists brought to you straight from the most intense and hottest spots of the ongoing war, so that you always know the complete and unvarnished truth. This was Volodymyr Tymoshenko with you. Take care of yourselves and your loved ones.